I found this article from the University of California. Study takes on gender performance gap in online video games. I mean, I didn't know there was a gender performance gap, but they are taking it on, I guess. The article, by Kathleen Holder, begins with a picture of a solid 7 out of 10 playing a video game, but it also opens with this paragraph. In the realm of fantasy video games, one epic monster stalks players both online and in the real world. The stereotype that men make better players than women. A new study led by a researcher at the University of California, Davis, slays that troll. This is something I've never really thought about. I have no idea. Are men better than women at video games? Maybe. Are women better? Maybe. I don't know. I could see it going either way. Men and women are different physically and mentally. It's very possible that one gender is just better in general at it. I don't know, but video games are a huge, vast set of challenges, and there's a lot of genres, and there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different stuff. It's hard to say who's better overall, isn't it? I mean, this seems like a good use of taxpayer money. In any event, the article says, yeah, okay, they do as good as each other. Okay. But how exactly do they get to that answer? Foreign name Cindy Shin, an assistant professor of communication, and colleagues tracked thousands of players in 2 multiplayer online role-playing games and compared how quickly men and women move from one level to the next. And here I have my first issue with this. Just because you advance through level faster doesn't mean you're better, but we'll revisit that in a moment. Accounting for differences in playing time, character choice, and membership in a player's guild, they found... How does differences in membership in players' guild affect how fast you level? I don't know. They found that women advanced at least as fast as men. At least as fast as men. Okay, so they're leveling up at least as fast as men. Okay. Once you take into account all these confounding factors, the gender differences disappear, Shin said. There is no gender difference. Which is weird. I mean, men and women are physically different, and as a whole, they tend to do different things better than each other. They're slightly more specialized in certain ways. I mean, they're not exactly the same on a physical or mental level. So it is odd to see that there is no gender difference when performing tasks like these. So I went on with the article to see exactly what games they tested. Bottom paragraph, to test that stereotype, Shin and colleagues at Michigan State University, the University of Southern California, and the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, analyzed data from more than 9,000 EverQuest 2 players and 2,000 players of a Chinese game, Chevalier's Romance 3, which is a game I have never heard of, and I found basically nothing when I went to Google. So, no romance for me. What's strange about this is that I have this odd feeling that the people who did this study maybe aren't that familiar with video games. One, because they say there's this prevailing attitude that women just suck at video games and they need to get good. But also because both of the games that they listed here are MMORPGs, which are wildly, wildly different from first-person shooters like Battlefield or Call of Duty or Dirty Bomb. They're wildly different from RTSs like Total War and StarCraft. They're different from turn-based strategy games and other such puzzle games, for instance. MMORPGs are their own thing, and even though MMORPGs like EverQuest and World of Warcraft and Guild Wars and all that, they're all different from one another, but they're also different from all the other genres of games. So they took a single genre. Okay, they took a single genre and used that to say women advance, or they basically said women are as good at video games as men. In RPGs. Specifically, in these RPGs. They didn't take the most popular games out there, like Call of Duty, Overwatch now, World of Warcraft. They didn't take Dota 2, any of that stuff. They used EverQuest 2. And the way that they determined women were as good at video games as men was how fast they leveled up. It was the speed in which they leveled up. The speed, nothing else. How fast they actually did it. What if they were using an exploit? What if they were only going to places that would give you the most XP possible and they weren't doing anything else? They weren't focused on fun or teamwork or actually getting better. It was just a straight ASAP level up as fast as you can. Exercise and speedrunning. That doesn't necessarily make you better gamers, especially not an entire gender at whole. You could just find the best spot to grind, and then, in the words of Mr. Dyke,
grind, 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 at that grindstone.
And again, that doesn't make you a better video gamer. You took a single genre, and I'll bet it's mostly PvE. If it's PvE, that's different from actually fighting against other players. I could have a friend and I could stomp him in a 1v1 360 no-scope battle. But then if we team up in Warframe, he could do way better than me. Who's the better gamer? It's no answer. I'm better at trigonometry. He's better at algebra. Who's better at math then? I don't know. There's different things. Video gaming is a very broad topic. There's a lot of different skills to have. Some is competitive, some is cooperative. There's strategy, there's being smart, and there's playing harder, and it's too complicated. They didn't say we took 1,000 gamers across multiple genres, multiple platforms, both cooperative and competitive, PvE and PvE, and here are the results we found. That would be much more compelling other than we took a bunch of EverQuest 2 players and both the men and women leveled up at the same rate. So obviously women are as good at video games as men, and men are as good at video games as women. That doesn't mean anything. We had 1,000 games of Battlefield where it was 32 women versus 32 men of equal ranks or equal skill, and we let them play, and at the end, the men won this percentage or the women won this percentage, and this was the amount of extremely close games that were, up to chance. I mean, maybe that would have been more compelling because it's a direct competition between men and women. Of course, the entire premise of this study is that, well, let me just show you, in their words. But let's start off before that by this section of the article, which happens in the middle, all right? This is a pretty short article, too. I don't know why they bothered separating it in the sections. Many gamers women, but stereotypes persist. Okay, there are lots of white people, but stereotypes exist. There's a lot of black people, but stereotypes persist. I don't know, it doesn't mean anything. It's a pointless thing to say. But pay attention to this, because this is really important, and this kind of opened my eyes to what kind of article and people we were dealing with. GamerGate. The cyber harassment of female gamers and game designers that erupted in 2014. There, right there. Bam. Instantly red flags shot up. That's how this person described GamerGate. That's what to... Who wrote this article again? I can't be bothered to find out. Kathleen Holder. That's what GamerGate is to Kathleen Holder. University of California. I'm so shocked. But to take everything that GamerGate was, to take the journalistic aspect of it, the corruption, the gamers are dead articles, to take all of that stuff and then to just boil it down to, oh, GamerGate was just a bunch of people harassing women. It shows you the obvious lens at which they are looking at this issue. And in doing so, you can kind of see the angle that they're taking things. To sum up GamerGate in such an incredibly simplistic term like that, it shows that you are looking at the issue with the ideas of women are victims, they must be protected, they must be defended. Men are aggressors and harassers, and they must be attacked. If people call out corruption in video game journalism, then obviously that means they hate women. But at least it's nice that in this article they so clearly and blatantly wear this stuff on their shoulder. It makes my job easier to form opinions upon. But let's go back. Even though more and more women have become gamers and more are involved in designing games, gaming communities as a whole are still very hostile towards women, Shin said. The prevalent stereotype is that women are not as good of players as men. And what's strangely, deliciously ironic about this paragraph in this article here is that's the kind of rhetoric that got GamerGate started. And of course, there was the whole Brianna Wu, I'm going to sleep with people who then promote my game and we're not going to tell anybody about it. And if you think that's corruption, then you just hate women. All the articles about gamers are dead and there's no identity of gamers, and what people identify as in terms of people who play video games, that's all null and void, and you're all a bunch of misogynistic women haters. When you tell a group of people that they're bad people, they're going to not take that kindly. So here we go. Gaming communities as a whole are still very hostile towards women. The internet is hostile towards everybody. You're not a special fucking snowflake because you have a vagina. Okay? Everybody harasses everybody. Everybody is a dick to everybody. That's the nature of the beast. Get over it. You're not special. I've been playing games for ages, for years and years and years and years, on a variety of different platforms and games and everything. I don't seem to recall a overwhelmingly hostile attitude towards women. If you suck at a game, guess what? Everybody on the team hates you. They're not going to hate you more because you're a woman. They're not going to hate you more because you're a guy. They hate you because you suck. Get good, scrub. Saying something like gaming communities as a whole are still very hostile towards women. What a ridiculous thing to say. What an absolutely ridiculous thing to say. And of course, if you do something like this and people don't respond in kind because you just called them hostile towards women, then they're going to say they're the victim. I know, that's how the game is played. It's weird. You provoke an entire massive community of people, and then when they get upset at you, you play the victim card. But look, maybe men are better in general at video games. Maybe women actually, on average, are better. Who knows? Either way, what does it matter? Who cares if they are? That doesn't mean men are better than women, or women are better than men. It doesn't mean any of that. Oh no, men are better at women in this one hobby. Oh no, I can't imagine. The horror. I mean, the shock and the horror. Because all this article goes into the idea with a bias. All right, and for a university to post this and to say, yeah, we totally debunked this, what did they call it? This one epic monster. Which, as far as I'm concerned, is a dragon that they have invented for themselves to slay. I think that anyone who takes this article seriously, maybe consider the idea that you shouldn't. Because let's just put aside the fact it's obviously biased. They're going into this with the idea that GamerGate was nothing more than a bunch of people harassing women. They're going into this as, I mean, I guess you could say that since a woman wrote it, it has a bias to it. Just like if a man wrote it, it would have a bias to it. Perhaps, I don't know, just a thought. But this just doesn't seem like it has, by the standards of which they've used for players in EverQuest and Chevalier's Romance 3. The level at which you rank up doesn't seem to be a very... none of this doesn't seem to be bollocks. It is not an accurate way to see who is better at video games. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous way to measure gender-based skill in video games. Absolute bollocks. As I said before, there are shooters. There are first-person shooters, third-person shooters. There are strategy games. There are turn-based strategy games, real-time strategy games. There are... What about music games? Rhythm and music games. What about games with motion controls? What about, again, the MMORPGs like they showed here? That doesn't prove anything, and it doesn't show anything. All it says is, in this one circumstance of this one particular game, or sorry, these two particular games, Chevalier's Romance 3. Can't forget about Chevalier's Romance 3. In these two games, they were ranking up at the same speed. Sorry, they were ranking up with women at least as well as men. Whatever that's supposed to mean. At least as well as men. Seems an odd way to phrase it, don't you think? And even in those games, right? And I keep adding thoughts to this. It's just kind of how I roll. And even in these games, there are different types of skill. For instance, someone who could do the world's fastest speedrun at Dark Souls 3, maybe he's terrible at fighting other players in Dark Souls 3. Because maybe those two things have nothing to do with one another. Maybe someone who could do the fastest Mario speedrun isn't going to be the one who does the best completion or gets hit the least amount of times or who has the actual best skill at Mario. Individual games can have individual sets of skills. And to say that women are as good as men at video games because in EverQuest 2 and Chevalier's Romance 3, they rank up or level their characters at the same speeds, well, that's ridiculous. If I had to guess, I would guess that men on average were better. Just a guess. But again, I could be wrong, and if I am, who cares? Who cares who's better at who than video games? As far as I'm concerned, this article has invented a dragon for itself to slay. Look at how good we are. Look at how progressive we are. See, women can do everything as good as men can. And if you don't agree, well, you're a misogynist.